The CIA's MKUltra program, a covert mind control operation initiated in the early 1950s, stands as one of the most infamous examples of government overreach and unconstitutional action in U.S. history. The program, spearheaded under the guise of national security, aimed to develop methods of controlling human behavior through drugs, psychological manipulation, and various forms of torture. While much of its documentation was destroyed in 1973, the surviving records and testimonies provide damning evidence of its ethical and constitutional violations. Key unconstitutional acts. 1. Violation of informed consent. A cornerstone of ethical, medical, and psychological practice is informed consent. Yet MKUltra routinely violated this principle. Test subjects, including mental patients, prisoners, and unwitting civilians, were exposed to powerful psychoactive drugs, such as LSD, without their knowledge or consent.
Was this patient aware that she was being given LSD?
Yes, I mean, they were told that they would be given some medication, and they
specifically LSD?
Well, we told them, I don't think that they would have even known what LSD was then at the time. They were told that they were going to they would be given some medications which might make them feel worse.
This breaches the 5th and 14th Amendments, which protect individuals from government actions that deprive them of life, liberty, or property without due process. 2. Torture and cruel treatment. The CIA employed methods such as sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and electroshock therapy, which constitute cruel and unusual punishment. These practices directly violate the 8th Amendment and underscore the program's disregard for human rights. 3. Illegal surveillance and experimentation. MKUltra extended beyond laboratories, infiltrating universities, hospitals, and prisons. The CIA's use of these institutions to conduct experiments without public knowledge violated citizens' Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures.
Just...
4. Directing vulnerable populations. The program disproportionately targeted marginalized groups, including the mentally ill, incarcerated individuals, and even foreign citizens, reflecting a systemic abuse of power.
John Gittinger, recently retired chief psychologist for the CIA. This is the first time Gittinger has been interviewed publicly.
We could disable a whole city by putting a very small amount on a water supply. After all of these years of us, those of us who are involved in looking for this secret drug, this was the only thing that began to look for the first time like it might be something like that. It was one of the first times that anybody had run into a powerful drug that was different than anything else that they knew anything about.
These actions mirror broader societal inequities and underscore the government's disregard for the rights of marginalized communities. The CIA's transgressions often manifest in popular culture as both tragic and absurd, earning it a reputation as a symbol of unaccountable government power. Parodies of MKUltra highlight a sheer audacity of a taxpayer-funded program conducting clandestine drug experiments on unsuspecting citizens. The meme-worthy aspect stems from moments like the CIA dosing 2 of its own agents without warning, the sheer randomness of hypnosis experiments to erase memories, and bizarre attempts to train psychic assassins. These absurdities reduce real trauma to comedic fodder, but also serve as sharp critiques of institutional recklessness.
The best-known case is that of this man, Frank Olson, a chemist employed by the Army Chemical Corps, who in 1953 was slipped LSD unknowingly at a meeting with CIA officials. Shortly after that, Olson went into severe depression. He ended his life at this New York hotel by diving through a shaded closed window in his 10th floor room. Frank Olson was the first known fatality in the CIA's LSD program. Olson left behind a widow Alice and 3 children, but it would be years before they learned the real story of his death. Shortly after his suicide, Alice Olson was visited by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the man who had administered the drug, and by Robert Lashbrook, his deputy, who was the last person with Frank Olson the night of his death.
It was probably to check me out and see whether I was handling myself and handling the situation, whether I was hysterical. And I'm sure they left the house feeling ever so much better because I had been gracious and hospitable to them, so that I must have played right into their hand and made them feel fine.
23 years later, how did you feel about that meeting?
My anger was unbelievable at how I had been duped for this length of time, and the anguish which was unnecessary.
To conclude, MKUltra reflects a profound failure of oversight and a blatant disregard for constitutional protections. Its violations illuminate the dangers of unchecked governmental power under the guise of national security. While often memeified, the program's legacy serves as a grim reminder of the necessity for transparency, accountability, and the preservation of individual rights. The absurdity of MKUltra's tactics may invite laughter, but its human cost demands serious reckoning.